Welcome to British Economic Archives, and today we re-uncovering one of the most unsettling and shocking chapters in Britain's financial history, a story of deception, manipulation and betrayal that reveals just how vulnerable the UK's pension system has been throughout decades of mismanagement, regulatory failures and outright fraud. This is the story behind what has often been described collectively as the £1 billion pension fraud crisis, a term used not to describe a single event, but a devastating accumulation of losses, scandals, abuses, and financial collapses that, over time, stripped British workers of more than £1 billion in promised retirement security. To understand how such a staggering figure came to represent the dark underbelly of Britain's pension history, we need to go back to the roots of modern pension fraud in the UK, beginning with one of the most infamous corporate collapses the country has ever seen: the Robert Maxwell scandal. In 1991, media tycoon Robert Maxwell mysteriously died after falling from his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, off the Canary Islands. His death triggered a massive financial investigation that revealed something unthinkable. Maxwell had secretly taken an estimated £460 million from his company's pension funds to prop up his failing empire. He had used pension money as his personal piggy bank, manipulating accounts, moving assets, and lying to trustees. The damage was catastrophic. More than 30,000 employees faced the risk of losing their pensions, and the public's trust in corporate pension management was shattered. This scandal became a turning point, directly influencing the creation of the Pensions Act 1995, which sought to tighten oversight and prevent similar abuses. But even with new protections in place, the UK was far from safe, because fraudsters and opportunists simply adapted, creating new schemes designed to trick ordinary people into transferring their pensions into dangerous or fraudulent investments. Through the late 1990s and early 2000s, the UK faced waves of pension liberation scams, where criminals promised savers early access to retirement money, only to siphon off enormous fees or steal the money entirely. Victims often faced not only financial ruin, but also heavy HMRC tax penalties for accessing pensions illegally. In some cases, individuals lost 100% of their pension savings, and investigations found that liberation schemes alone had drained hundreds of millions of pounds from unsuspecting savers across the country. One of the most significant modern pension crises emerged between 2015 and 2018 with the British Steel Pension Scheme (BSPS) scandal. As Tata Steel struggled financially, thousands of steelworkers were pressured to move their stable defined benefit pensions. Many after receiving advice from financial advisors who were later found to be operating unethically. Workers were told they would lose everything if they didn't transfer, even though that was false. The Financial Conduct Authority later found that 46% of all advice given to steelworkers was unsuitable, and many lost tens of thousands of pounds each, some even losing more than £200,000 in lifetime pension value. The National Audit Office reported that unsuitable pension transfer advice across the UK had led to losses of more than £300 million among savers. This alone pushed the total damage from pension-related misconduct ever closer to the £1 billion threshold. But scandals didn't stop there. Major corporate collapses, such as Carillion in 2018 and Arcadia Group in 2020, exposed enormous pension deficits, leaving tens of thousands of workers in limbo. Carillion, before its bankruptcy, left a pension deficit estimated at £800 million, while Arcadia faced a pension shortfall of around £350 million. Forcing emergency negotiations and interventions from the Pension Protection Fund. Although pension deficits are not the same as fraud, They reveal the systemic vulnerabilities that repeatedly placed workers' retirement security at risk. Meanwhile, direct pension fraud continued to rise dramatically across the UK. According to Action Fraud and the FCA, victims reported over £31 million in pension scam losses in 2017 alone. And the real figure was believed to be 3 times higher because most victims never reported their losses. In 2018, scam reports increased again, with cold callers and fake investment advisors targeting thousands of pension holders following the introduction of pension freedoms in 2015. These freedoms allowed anyone over 55 to access their pension as a lump sum, creating a perfect storm of opportunity for fraudsters. The FCA estimated that between 2015 and 2020, total pension scam losses in the UK exceeded £500 million. Although consumer groups argued the real number was likely above £1 billion due to unreported cases. One notable example was the eco-investments fraud, a scheme that promised high returns from carbon credits and forestry projects. Investigators later found that nearly £40 million in pension savings had been siphoned off. Another case, the Trafalgar Multi-Asset Fund, collapsed after misleading investors, leaving a trail of lost pensions estimated at £40 million. Even more disturbing was the Nightingale Retirement Fund scam, which trapped hundreds of investors and led to approximately £20 million in losses. When added together over the years, Maxwell's £460 million theft, British Steel's massive losses, corporate pension deficits in the hundreds of millions, and the rising tide of pension scams draining hundreds of millions from ordinary British citizens, becomes clear why journalists, investigators, economists, and pension watchdogs frequently describe the situation as a £1 billion disaster, or the £1 billion pension fraud crisis. This term represents not one fraud, but a painful accumulation of widespread abuses that collectively stripped British workers of over £1 billion of retirement security. The worst part is that victims were often ordinary people who spent decades working in steelworks, construction, retail, public services, and manufacturing, trusting that their pension funds, which the government urged them to pay into, would be there for them in old age. Many victims described the heartbreak of discovering that their life savings had vanished. People in their 50s suddenly forced back into work, couples cancelling retirement plans, and families losing their only financial safety net. But the story doesn't end in despair. These scandals have shaped major reforms in Britain's pension landscape. After the Maxwell scandal, the government created better funding rules and independent trustees. After widespread mis-selling scandals, the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, FSCS, began reimbursing victims of bad advice, paying out hundreds of millions of pounds. Following the British Steel scandal, regulators increased oversight of pension transfer advisors, and in 2019, the government banned all pension cold-calling practices, making it illegal for scammers to contact pension holders unsolicited. The UK also strengthened the Pension Protection Fund (PPF), which acts as a lifeboat for defined benefit schemes that collapse, and has protected millions of pensions in failing companies. Still, regulators warn that fraudsters continue evolving faster than the rules designed to stop them. As of the early 2020s, cyber scams, overseas investment fraud, crypto-linked pension schemes, and clone firm frauds have become major new threats. The FCA reports that criminals now impersonate legitimate companies using realistic websites and fake registration numbers, causing unsuspecting victims to transfer their pension pots into schemes that vanish within months. While Britain has made progress in fighting fraud, experts fear that inadequate financial education, An aging population and aggressive investment marketing leave millions vulnerable. For British citizens watching this today, the lesson is clear. Pension fraud in the UK did not happen because people were careless. It happened because the system was often confusing, poorly regulated, and targeted by highly sophisticated criminals. This video is a reminder of the need to stay informed, stay cautious, and demand strong regulatory oversight to protect the retirement of every British worker. And, as always, thank you for watching British Economic Archives. If you found this deep dive valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to support our mission of telling Britain's most important financial stories. Your support helps us uncover more hidden chapters from our nation's economic past. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next video.